The chair, during the first 4 years of its inception, was tasked mainly with developing a research program which is aligned with the UNESCO priority areas. The priority areas for UNESCO are essentially to conduct research and disseminate that research in areas of poverty eradication, good governance, leadership training, dealing with youth problems, in particular in the Global South. The chair in its first term was really working on developing the foundations for a genuinely collaborative program. UNESCO obviously emphasizes teaching and education, and one of the key goals of UNESCO is actually education for all, quality education for all, irrespective of where they come from. And we see that training good researchers as a fundamental part of sustaining knowledge production processes, and in particular in areas where there are some problems in relation to knowledge and existing gaps. UNESCO in particular, perhaps more than any other agency in the UN, sees a strong mandate to be really on building capacity in the Global South, but also a capacity in relation to building the scientific and the educational capacity of the Global South. There's a big problem within the global knowledge production, which is an imbalance between what the North produces and what the Global South produces. And UNESCO sees part of its mandate is to try to narrow and bridge that gap. So working with colleagues in the Global South, working with civil society organizations in the Global South, working with youth from the Global South is a fundamental part of what UNESCO does. We had a number of successful projects undertaking since the establishment of the chair in 2013. Most recently in 2017, for instance, a book that was developed as part of the UNESCO Unitwin network, and that book was on the new concept of intercultural dialogue or interculturalism at the crossroads, looking at issues of policy, issues of theory and issues of practice. Other work produced on global migration, in particular with an emphasis on women, and a number of other papers and special issues of journals which looked into diaspora communities, migrant communities, issues of racism, and issues of social marginalization of youth. A lot of that research is part and parcel of what the chair does. So having the UNESCO Operations as an annual event involving high-profile public speakers who advocate for some of these issues, I think is very, very important, because it reaches out to a different audience, it communicates some of the messages in a much more accessible manner, and also it highlights the plight of a number of individuals and communities in our societies which otherwise would not have a voice. So for instance, in inviting Nobel Peace Prize Rugabida Menschel to deliver the oration in 2015 was really highlighting the struggle of the indigenous communities of South America and the indigenous communities globally, and what it takes for those struggles to actually achieve outcomes for those communities. The next 4 years are going to be extremely busy for the chair. We have already started a number of very exciting projects, none more so perhaps than trying to develop the first ever global index on intercultural dialogue. So this hasn't happened before. We're trying to look at how different societies are tracking in relation to social peace using the instrument of intercultural dialogue, and a number of other projects, in particular around multicultural education and how different jurisdictions approach multicultural education in terms of resourcing professional training and in terms of how that plays out in reality in schools.